Welcome to Study Life. Remember last time we studied Ohm's law? What did Ohm's law say? Ohm's law said some very finite things about potential, current and resistance. This is the basic Ohm's law. What did Ohm's law say? Ohm's law says that the current flowing through a conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference, right? Am I correct? Yes. So if I ever want to shift either sides, I can just do it this way. V is proportional to I, and in order to write a constant, I wrote something called as R. This R was called as resistance, and hence the formula V is equal to IR. I hope all of you understand this concept. Now, what is R? R is resistance. What is resistance? The opposition to the flow of current. So let's say current is flowing like water in a tube. You can imagine something like this. This is a very nice example of how exactly resistance works with current. So suppose if there is a tunnel and current is flowing through, resistance basically clogs the pores, like वो बीच में से बंद कर देता है. It doesn't allow the steady flow of current. It obstructs the flow of current. बात समझ में आ गया बच्चों? So now I understand what is the concept of resistance. ठीक है? So if ever I understand and plan on to draw a graph with potential on the y-axis and current on the x-axis. Okay? So in this scenario, I understand that the graph of a conductor that is obeying Ohm's law is nothing but a straight line graph. It is generally linear. It is generally linear. So and it is always depending on the inclination. What is the inclination in here? Theta. So if I decide to write the slope of this graph, if I decide to write the slope of this graph, what is the slope of this graph, bachcho? Tan theta. And what is tan theta ka matlab? Tan theta in our scenario, it is delta V upon delta I, which is later expressed as nothing but resistance. That means for a graph, for a VI graph, the curve or the line that is drawn, the slope of this line represents my resistance. Okay, so let me just induce a case in front of you. So let me just assume I've got two cases wherein the first graph shows an angle of theta 1 and the second graph shows me an angle of theta 2. The same conductor is is operated at two different temperatures, let's say T1 and T2, and they show different graphs like this and that, making two inclinations, theta 1 and theta 2. They want me to calculate the resistance and they only want me to compare them. Say whether R1 is greater than R2 or R1 is less than R2 or R1 is equal to R2 or none of this. This is some of the favorite MCQs they tend to ask. This is something you can come across in your boards, in your JEE exams, in your NEET exams, and your CET exams as well. So what do you think is the correct answer to this question? VI graph, the same conductor at two different temperatures, making two different graphs have different inclinations. I understand that the resistance of a conductor is given by the formula tan theta. Okay? So if I substitute tan theta 1 and I calculate tan theta 2, I clearly understand that the value of tan theta 2 is much greater than the value of tan theta 1, and therefore resistance 2 is much greater than resistance 1, and hence this happens to be my correct answer. So I suppose the basic idea of Ohm's law is very clear in your head, and I also struck a point that every device that obeys Ohm's law will be called as ohmic device. That also means there is still a possibility that there will be certain conductors that won't obey Ohm's law, and we'll be discussing about them in our next video. So until then, stay tuned with Study Life and keep learning.